Hey, everybody, welcome to Hollywood Live. This is one of those hard stories to talk about. It's been 100 years. But if you've ever heard of Black Wall Street and the massacre of Black people that happened in 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's what we're talking about here today. It turns out that a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week, Hughes Van Ellis, who was one of the last survivors, passed away at 102. And we're going to be telling the story. We're not going to let people forget about it because one of our favorite new directors is back with us, Nailah Jefferson, and also Leslie Fields-Cruz from and I want to get this correct, the Black Public Media that's been around since 1979. These two ladies are going to make sure that story is told. Welcome to Hollywood Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Nailah, I have to congratulate you one more time on your Danielle Luna
You.
piece. It was just amazing.
Thank you.
Just amazing. I may have said Danielle, but Danny, was it? It was Danielle Luna.
It was Danielle, but no, thank you so much, and thank you for having me back. I think it's right in line with the work that Black Public Media does, and that I'm interested in doing, and in this story of Descended from the Promised Land, where we make sure that these stories of Black people are not lost, especially Black people who accomplished unbelievable things in such treacherous times. So Danielle Luna during the Civil Rights Movement, and of course, those people, the descendants of the Promised Land, who built up Black Wall Street, not like 50 years after slavery, not even 50 years removed from slavery. And they were able to accomplish such great feats and really build wealth and realize in so many ways the American dream. But unfortunately for them, we know now that the American dream isn't for everybody.
Well, no, it was the first time America had bombed its own citizens. That's what happened on Black Wall Street.
Absolutely.
America came with planes and bombed Black people because they were jealous. It came right down to nothing but jealous. In your documentary where you do talk to the descendants, I got so angry. I mean, just listening to them. And I understand why many of times our stories aren't told, because we do get angry, like we should. I think we should be angry about it. That's me personally. But when talking to these people today, what did both of you glean? And I know, Leslie, this is something that has been passionate with you and your company for many, many years, just telling these stories. But what was the biggest lesson you learned from talking to the descendants of the Wall Street Massacre?
Well, I'll let Nailah answer that because she did the film.
That's funny. One thing that I can say that I learned that I was very surprised by is that these families didn't really talk about what happened. 100 years had passed, and for generations, nobody really talked about the loss or the trauma. And, when you hear that, you're struck by it. But then I had to reflect on it and say, well, who really wants to talk about the very worst thing that could have ever happened in your family? So I got it. But I think now they feel more empowered to talk about it. I think there are certain words, as Galani, who formerly known as Byron in the film, as he expresses talking about his great-grandmother, Lula Williams, great-great-grandmother, Lula Williams, and how she had a complete mental breakdown after the Tulsa Race Massacre. But back then, they didn't have the words to say what she was experiencing, right? Mm-hmm. They just said that she went crazy, or she couldn't talk anymore, and she just couldn't get herself together. And so I think for him to be able to reclaim that narrative, because the thing is, it was never explained why they were not able to rebuild, right? But for them to be able to reclaim the narrative and say, wait, no, this wasn't our fault. We were attacked. And then after the physical attack, certain policies are put in place to make sure that we could not rebuild. This was a grave injustice, and it's one that Tulsa, I think, is still grappling with. So for me, I think that's the biggest takeaway, kind of the journey to healing for these families, the descendants of those who built and really built up Black Wall Street.
Right. Leslie, as we tell these stories and put them out there for the public, that was one of the things that struck me, talking about the fact that actual legislation never was put in place to even address this atrocity. Nobody's ever really been charged for this. I mean, even after 100 years. So when the public sees and hears things, what is the impressions? What are some of the things that you hear back from people who watch things like this, Leslie?
Well, I definitely believe that having these stories out in the public and available for anyone to see, on YouTube or on public media, that it provides them with, one, our history and information. For many people, it is information that they didn't know. I mean, I think for some of us in the Black community, we had heard of the Tulsa Race Massacre maybe years ago, but we did not really have the full scope. We did not really understand it. And it's really important that our storytellers like Nailah come in and pull these stories out from our communities, from our family members in some cases, because once that information is released, once it's out in the world, there is no denying that it happened. There is no trying to hide it. There is no trying to not make it available and teach it in schools. It has to be taught because it is part of our history. And we need to know, because if we're going to encourage change, if we're going to address redlining in our communities, housing, or underfunding Black businesses in our communities, it's because we have this as a record as to, look, this is what happened. And we don't understand why this community was not allowed to rebuild. And then that opens up a whole nother opportunity to tell another part of our story that is still not really fully told in its context. So I just believe that here at Black Public Media, when we support these makers who are diving into these deep and in many cases traumatic experiences of our history, that they are doing a service for the American public. We have to have this information. We need to know this information if we are going to make sure this doesn't happen again. And if we're about to, if we are going to affect change in the future.
Yeah, I have to ask you, Nailah, are you angry? I mean, when you were going through all of this and talking to these people, did you get angry?
I mean, I think there's a piece of me that gets angry, and that kind of fires you up. You get motivated. You want to get to the truth and give these families an opportunity to tell their stories. But then I also want to lean towards hope. I don't want to just stay in anger, because we want to have a resolution at the end of the day. We want to move forward and not just kind of be stuck in anger. That's me personally. I feel like if people are angry and that's the emotion they want to walk away with, that is absolutely their right, because it was, I mean, just what happened to these families is criminal, and it's for 100 years they didn't speak about it so much. But for me, the anger will then fuel motivation, and then hopefully something beautiful can come out of it. And that's what we wanted to show in this film as well. I mean, they're absolutely devastating parts, but then when we take a moment to kind of meditate on that archival footage that we have of how beautiful Black Wall Street was, and then when we end with Byron and he's able to imagine a better future, and I'm sorry, Galani, formerly known as Byron. That's really, for me, inspirational. And I really wanted to have a young voice in the film leave us with that, because I feel like these stories you hear a lot from people who lived it, or you hear a lot from our elders, but I wanted to lend a younger voice, a youthful voice, more hopeful voice to what's happening, so that they could kind of reclaim, I think, the story as well. A lot of times I think their input is kind of not considered when we are reimagining how to move forward. But I mean, that's who we're going to be left with.
That's who's
I wanted to provide that space.
No, that is, but the whole story of all of these people, the thing that really struck me, and like we're losing I think there are 2 survivors left that were actually alive during this time. Is there 2 left, or that we know of?
I think it's two left.
I think so.
I think there are two people left. But hearing them tell their own story, the thing that stood out is like the resilience. Just we're gonna keep going. We don't have to. I mean, I don't want to give everything away, but like, one young man who was there, and like he had to, his house is bombed. He doesn't know where his parents are, and he still had to go to work before he could come back and find his mother and his father. And I mean, things like that just move your heart, but it does give you hope that, if these people could go through that, whatever it is we're going through now with all the crazy people, we'll not only will we survive, but we're going to thrive and do really, really well. So it's okay. we can all move on. Now this airs on the Black Public Media. And when does this start running? It starts streaming on.
It's streaming now. Yes, it started on Monday, and it's on Black Public Media's YouTube channel. You can also go to our website, blackpublicmedia.org, actually, and then you'll be able to get the link to the YouTube. But if you go to YouTube, just type in Black Public Media, subscribe, and you'll be able to watch Descendants, as well as several other Afro pop shorts that are on our channel.
And you've been doing this, like I said, the organization's been around since 1979. What are some of the other things that we can pull up in your archives?
Well, I mean, it's funny because this is with this film, and hold on. With this film, there was a piece that was on American Experience called Going Back to T-Town that was also about the Tulsa Race Massacres that you can watch. And then we also do support independent or immersive media. And so there were a couple of VR projects called Greenwood Avenue by Ayana Baraka, and what's the other one? Red Summers VR. And so, so we have a lot of stories that will reflect the African-American and African diaspora experience. But we also have a series, Afropop, The Ultimate Cultural Exchange, which Afropop Digital Shorts comes from. That airs on World Channel. And it's a series, we have 5 to 6 episodes in that. And it comes out in April every year. But you can also go to pbs.org or to our website or to World Channel's website and watch the titles there. And then we do talent development services. Nailah is one of our 360 alumni. She came through that program. We funded her next feature that's coming out, Commuted. Some of you may have seen it in the festival circuit. It will be aired on Afropop.
It's premiering. It's premiering at the Film Festival.
It's premiering. Oh, okay, so people haven't seen it. Okay, see, this is why I'm like, and so we're excited because this is, I think we met Nailah at the New Orleans Film Festival many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And, we just chatted, and then she applied and got into the program, and and she's just gone on to do all these amazing things. So we have a lot of talent development support that we provide for makers. And then Pitch Black, which is our annual pitching program, Pitching Fest. That's where Nailah pitched, and she was awarded $100,000 for her project. And so next year we are focusing on climate stories. That is a big initiative for us because we need to have more stories like that. So we do a lot. That's why people go to blackpublicmedia.org and you can learn more about how we support independent makers and also content that we fund that you want to watch on public media.
Absolutely. I mean, I knew you were busy, Leslie. I didn't know you were that busy. And I mean, what a discovery. Look at Nailah. I mean, just amazing. Tell me a little bit about the film that's coming out, because we're obviously following you and big supporters and fans of yours now too. So what's the next project that
the next film is Commuted. I've been working with Danielle Metz for about 6 years now. In 2016, Danielle was her triple life plus 20-year drug sentence was commuted by President Obama. In 1992, Danielle was sentenced for drug crimes that were related to her husband. And that was back when we were locking them up and throwing away the key, war on drugs. And at the time, Danielle had 2 small kids. She had a son who was 7 and a daughter who was 3. So when she returns home 23 years later, as you can imagine, there is a major strain in that family. And there's just like a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done. And so this film follows her for 6 years since she's home, and just looking at Danielle and how she's a woman who's in her late 40s when she comes back. She's in her mid 50s now, how she's able to navigate the free world. But it's less so about getting a job and going back to school and things like that. We really focus on the emotional journey, the mental journey, the spiritual journey, and the relationship with her kids, and the trauma that's caused by over sentencing. And I feel like a lot of times women are left out of the conversations about criminal justice reform. And so we really wanted to shine a light on Danielle. And Danielle and I are both from Uptown New Orleans. So it's been a pleasure to really just watch her blossom. And you'll see from the beginning of the film a big change throughout the 6 years. And she's doing advocacy work now. She's speaking. She's just, I mean, she's really coming to her own. And I'm very just honored to tell this story. And I'm appreciative to Black public media for upholding filmmakers like myself. I mean, I'm just one of many. There are so many careers that they support. There are so many artists that they develop. And really, we need groups like this to help us and keep us going. Because I think about every opportunity that I've gotten, it's because of organizations like Black Public Media. It always need that support to really believe in you, because otherwise you get lost in this wash of white male documentary filmmakers. Hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Oh no, that's the truth. I mean, but here's the very interesting thing. I'm sitting up here and listening to both of you and looking at both of you lovely ladies and thinking, you know what? We don't really need all of those other people. We've got each other. And I mean, and what we've got has always worked from Black Wall Street to before that. What we've got has always worked. We just need to figure out how to continue to work it.
Yeah.
You know,
they're working it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you both are. So congratulations to both of you. I am so glad that that Nailah, that you are in our universe as well, and we can continue to support you. You are truly a gem, and you're just beginning. I can't imagine, and I can't wait to see some of the wonderful things you will continue to do. And Leslie, you too, girl, you just keep it going on. I know you've been executive director now for about 10 years, you know, so who knows what you will be bringing us. I'm so excited for both of you. Thank you so much. I want to tell everybody again, the documentary is Descended from the Promised Land, The Legacy of Black Wall Street. It is premiering now on blackpublicmedia.com. Anything else you want to say to the audience before we leave?
I just want to leave blackpublicmedia.org.
What did I say? blackpublicmedia.org.
.org. Yes.
No, just thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us and for dealing with my dog in the background. I'm not sure if you all heard that. I hope
not. Really.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having us.
Not at all. Our pleasure. And for everybody else out there, we always have the best content in the world, the best audience and the best guests. So please continue to support us. Follow us on social media, obviously at AURN online. And for everybody, have a great day. Take care of yourself and somebody else.